Just a reminder that Augie's about to go to school camp, and if you've seen the movie, this is actually quite maybe a bit shocking, maybe a bit of a surprise, certainly a good kind of extra twist or element to the story. I can't believe how much you've grown up this year, Augie, said Mum softly, putting her hands on the sides of my face. Do I look taller? Yeah, definitely. I'm still the shortest in my grade, though. I'm not really even talking about your height. I suppose I hate it there. You're going to have a great time, she said, and I nodded, and she got up and gave me a quick kiss on the forehead. Okay, shall we get to bed now? It's only 9 o'clock, Mum. Your bus leaves at 6 a.m. tomorrow. You don't want to be late. Come on, chop chop, your teeth are brushed. I nodded and climbed into bed, and she started to lie down next to me. You don't really need to put me to bed tonight, Mummy. I'm going to read to myself. That'll make me sleepy. See, he's showing a twist in his personality, and he's wanting to do things for himself. Really? She nodded, impressed. She squeezed my hand and gave a kiss. Okay then, good night. Have sweet dreams. You too, I said. She turned on the little reading light beside my bed. I'll write you letters, I said. Probably I'll be home by the time the letters arrived. Aye, well then we can read them together, said Mum. And she threw me a kiss, and when she left the room, I took up my copy of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe of the Knight's Table and started reading until I fell asleep. Though the witch knew the deep magic, there is a magic deeper still, which she did not know. Her knowledge goes back only to the dawn of time. But if she could have looked a little further back into the stillness and the darkness before time dawned, she would have read, there's a different incantation. Daybreak. The next day, of course, I woke up early. It was still dark inside my room and darker outside, but I knew it would be morning, so I turned over on my side and I didn't feel at all sleepy. That's when I saw Daisy sitting on the bed. I mean, I knew it wasn't Daisy, but for a second I saw a shadow that looked like her. I didn't think it was a dream then, but now, looking back, I know it must have been a dream. It didn't make me sad to see her at all. It just filled me up with this nice feeling inside. Remember, Daisy was gone. Now, I could see her in the darkness, and then suddenly I couldn't see her. The room slowly started lighting up, and I reached for my hearing aid headband and put it on. And now the world was really awake that I could hear things. I could hear the garbage trucks clunking down the street and the birds in our backyard. And down the hallway, I heard Mum's alarm beeping. Daisy Ghost made me feel super strong inside, knowing wherever I am, Daisy Ghost will be with me. I got out of bed and went to my desk and wrote a little note to Mum. Then I went into the living room where my packed bag was by the door. We'd put it there the night before to be organized. I opened it up and fished inside until I found what I was looking for. I took Babu back to my room and I laid him in my bed and I taped the little note to Mum on his chest. Then I covered him with my blanket so Mum would find him later. Oh, that's really thoughtful that he's thought ahead and left a note so when he goes off to camp, later Mum will find it. Dear Mum, I won't need Babu, but if you miss me, you can cuddle him yourself. Love, Augie. That's a cool idea. Day 1, the bus ride went really fast. I sat by the window, Jack sat next to me in the aisle seat, and Summer and Maya, they were in front of us. Everyone was in a really good mood, kind of loud and laughing a lot. I noticed right away that Julian wasn't on our bus, even though Harry and Miles were. I figured he must have been on the other bus. But then I overheard Miles tell Amos that Julian had ditched the grade trip because he thought the whole nature retreat thing was quite dorky. I totally got pumped because dealing with Julian for 3 days in a row and 2 nights was a major reason I was nervous about the whole trip. So now without him there, I could really relax and I didn't have to worry about anything. We got to the nature reserve about midday, and the first thing we did was, of course, put our stuff in our cabins. There were 3 bunk beds to every room, so me and Jack did rock, paper, scissors for the top bunk, and I won. Whoa, and the other guys in the room were Reed, Tristan, Pablo, and Nino. After we went to lunch in the main cabin, we all went on a 2-hour nature hike through the woods. But these were not woods like the kind they have in Central Park. These were real woods. Woods like a little forest. Giant trees that almost totally blocked out the light. Tangles of leaves, fallen tree trunks, howls and chirps, and really loud bird calls. There was a slight fog too, like a pale blue smoke all around us. So cool. The different types of trees we were passing, the insects inside the dead logs on the trail, the signs of deer and bears in the woods, what type of birds were whistling and were looking for them, and where to look for them. I realized that my Lobot hearing aids actually made me hear better than most people, because I was usually the first to hear a new bird call. It started to rain as we headed back to camp, and I pulled on my rain poncho and pulled the hood up so my hearing aids, of course, wouldn't get wet. But my jeans and shoes, they got soaked by the time we reached our cabin. Everyone was soaked, but it was really fun, and then we had a wet sock fight. Turn and tell your neighbor what you think a wet sock fight might be. Okay, so for the rest of the day it was raining and we played ping pong and we played some arcade games like Pac-Man. There were some video games there, and then it stopped raining and we had a real campfire cookout. There were log benches all around the campfire. They were a bit damp, but we threw our jackets over them and we hung out by the fire and we toasted our s'mores. Remember, they're a biscuit, chocolate, marshmallow. You squish them together once you've heated up the chocolate and the marshmallow. They're the best thing I'd ever tasted, and so was the roasted hot dogs. Mum was right about the mosquitoes, though. There was tons of them, but luckily I had spritzed myself before I left the cabin, so I wasn't eaten alive like the other kids were. I loved hanging out by the campfire after dark. I loved the way the bits of fire dust would float up and disappear into the night air, and how the fire lit up people's faces. I loved the sound of the fire made, and how the woods was so dark that you couldn't even see anything around you. And you look up and see a billion, what do you think you see in the sky? Stars. Stars. The sky looked like that it had a north, like it was, the sky doesn't look like that in North River Heights. I thought it was going to say the sky looked like it had a river in it, because when the stars are beautiful, you see the Milky Way and it looks like a river through the sky. I was so tired when I got back to the cabin that I didn't need to pull out a book to read. I fell asleep almost as fast as my head hit the pillow. And maybe I dreamed about the stars, I don't know. Okay, are you ready? Rub your ears if you need to, because here it gets good. The fairground. The next day was just as great as the first day. We went horseback riding and rappelling up some ginormous trees. But of course we were with guides, and by the time we got back to the cabin for dinner, we were all really tired again. After dinner, they told us we had an hour to rest, and then we were going on a 15-minute bus ride to the fairgrounds for an outdoor movie night. That's cool. I hadn't had a chance to write a letter to Mum and Dad and Via yet, so I wrote one telling them all about the stuff we did that day and the day before in my rest hour. And I pictured myself reading it to them out loud when I got back, since there was just no way the letter was going to get home before I did. When we got to the fairgrounds, the sun was just starting to set. It was about 7:30, so it was a bit dark, getting dark. The shadows were really long in the grass, and the clouds were pink and orange. It looked like someone had taken a sidewalk chalk and smudged it across the sky. I could understand why ancient people used to think the world was flat and the sky was a dome that closed in on top of us. That's what it looked like from the fairground, in the middle of this huge open field. Because we were the first school to arrive, and there were going to be other schools too, we got to run around the field all we wanted until the teachers told us to come and lay out our sleeping bags on the ground to get a good view and sort of save our seats. We unzipped the bags and laid them out like picnic blankets, and then we went to a row of food trucks, and they were parked all around the outside of the field, and we went up and got snacks and loads of stuff. They were selling peanuts and cotton candy, and a little further up was a short row of carnival stalls, like games and things. There was stuffed animals. You threw a baseball at a basket and you could win things. Jack and I tried, but we failed about everything. We heard Amos won a yellow hippie, and he gave it to one of the girls. That was big gossip. That was really big gossip. From the food trucks, you could see the corner of the back of the movie screen. Oh, no, sorry. From the food trucks, you could see the corn stacks at the back of the movie screen. They covered about a third of the entire field. Corn, big bits of, have you seen corn growing? The rest of the field was completely surrounded by woods, and as the sun sank lower in the sky, the tall trees and the entrance of the woods looked dark blue. By the time the other school buses pulled into the parking lots, we were back in our spots on our sleeping bags. Right smack in the front of the screen. We had the best seats in the whole field. Everyone was passing around snacks, and me and Jack and Summer and Reed and Maya, we played Pictionary, and we could hear other kids arriving in the fields on both sides of us, but we couldn't really see them. Though the sky was still light, the sun had gone down completely, and everything on the ground had turned deep purple. The clouds were shadows now, and we had trouble even seeing the Pictionary cards in front of us, like a card game. Just then, without any announcement, all the lights at the ends of the field went on at once. They were like a big stadium lights. I thought of that scene on Close Encounters, which was this movie where they were playing music and the aliens were landing. Everyone in the field started cheering like something great was going to happen. Do you want to give it a cheer too? An announcement came over the huge speakers next to the stadium lights. Welcome everyone, welcome to the 23rd annual big movie night. Welcome teachers and students, and they named all the schools. Welcome teachers from the other school, and everyone was cheering when their school was read. We're thrilled that you're all here. So as we prepare the movie, we ask you to take a few moments to listen to the announcement. The Nature Reserve, as you know, is dedicated to preserving our natural resources and our environment. We ask that you leave no litter behind, clean up after yourselves, be kind to nature, keep and be very mindful walking around the grounds. Don't go beyond the orange cones around the edges, and do not go near the cornfields or the woods. Now, this is important. Do not go there. Please keep the free roaming to a minimum. Even if you don't feel like watching the movie, your fellow students might feel like it, so don't sit in front of them or annoy them and stand in front of them. No playing music or running around. After the movie is over, it'll be dark, so make your way back with your teacher. Don't get lost to the buses. Teachers, there's usually at least one lost person or lost group at the big movie night. Don't let it happen to you. Tonight's movie is The Sound of Music. Oh, I immediately started clapping, even though I'd seen it a few times, because it was Via's favorite movie of all times. Then I was surprised that a whole bunch of kids booed and hissed and laughed. Not the kids from our school. Someone on the right side of me even threw a soda can at the screen, which seemed to surprise Mr. Tushman. So it shows it's not as well behaved as school. They have their expectations are not the same as the kids at Beecher Prep or at our school. I saw him stand up and look in the direction of the can thrower, though I knew he couldn't see anything, because remember, it was dark. The movie started playing right away and the stadium lights dimmed down. Maria the nun was standing on top of the mountain and singing and twirling and all of a sudden, I found it quite chilly and cold. So I put my hoodie on and adjusted the volume of my hearing aids and leaned against my backpack, and I started watching The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music. It's a very old movie. The woods are alive. Somewhere around the boring part where the guy named Rolf and the oldest daughter are singing a song, Jack nudged me. Dude, I gotta go and pee. We both got up and kind of hopped over the kids who were sitting around us on their sleeping bags. Summer waved as we passed and I waved back. There's lots of kids from the other schools walking around by the food trucks, playing the games or hanging out. Of course, there was a huge line for the toilets because we were all having to share. Forget this, Jack said. I'm just going to go and pee against a tree. Oh, that's gross. Let's just wait, I answered. But he headed off to a row of trees at the edge of the field, which is just past the orange cones, which we were specifically told not to go past. And of course, I followed him. And of course, we didn't have our flashlights because we forgot to bring them. It was so dark now, we literally couldn't see 10 steps ahead of us as we walked towards the woods. That's a good way of saying it's dark. We couldn't see 10 steps ahead of us as we walked towards the woods. Luckily, the movie gave off some light, so when we saw a flashlight coming towards us out of the woods, we knew immediately that it was Henry, Miles, and Amos. I guess they hadn't wanted to wait in line for the toilets either. Miles, Henry, was still not talking to Jack, but Amos, he'd given up on this ridiculous war, and he nodded hello to us as they passed us. "Be careful of the bears," Henry shouted, and he and Miles laughed. Amos shook his head at us. "Don't pay attention to them, there's no bears." Jack and I walked a little further until we were inside the woods. Then Jack hunted around for the perfect tree. Finally, he did his business, though I felt like he was taking forever. The woods were loud and they had strange sounds, and it was quite scary because there was creaks and noises coming from the tree and croaks. Then we started hearing loud snaps not far from us, almost like cap gun pops. Definitely they weren't insect noises, and far away, like in another world, we could hear raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. That's the song from the movie. "Ah, that's much better," said Jack as he had a pee. Now I have to pee," I said, which I did on the nearest tree. No way I was going further in like Jack did. "Did you smell that?" he said, coming over to me. "It's kind of like I can smell firecrackers." "Oh yeah, that's what it is," I answered. "Weird. Okay, well, let's go." Right, if you haven't seen the movie, book club conversation, what do you think is going to happen next? Number one. And number two, how has the author set the scene to be a little bit creepy? And we know that something is going to go wrong. Something to do with the orange cones, how they've described the woods, the noises, the smells. Think about those things. How do you know something's going to go wrong from the things the author's put in there?